What if you could build an app that translates text into multiple languages and generates smart summaries all through a simple web interface? Right in your browser. Well, that's exactly what we're going to show you today. In this video, we're going to use the Microsoft Azure's AI services like the Azure AI Foundry Translator and the AI Foundry Language Service to create a complete app with the multilingual translations and two types of summaries. The extractive, which captures the most important parts of the text, and the abstractive, which rewrites the ideas in new words. And to guide you through this entire process, here is Herbert Pereira, one of our experts here at the Cloud Bootcamp. So get your setup ready, because by the end of this video, you're gonna see a fully working app you can use in any project. Let's dive in.
Hi, I'm Herbert Pereira, and in this video, we're going to show you how to create a multilingual text translation and summarization application using Microsoft Azure's Artificial Intelligence Services, AI Foundry. This application offers two core features: text translation, which allows converting content into multiple languages, and text summarization, available in two formats, extractive and abstractive. The extractive mode identifies and returns the most important parts of the original text, while the abstractive mode reformulates the content, expressing the main ideas in a more natural and concise way, as if explaining them in your own words. To bring this to life, we'll use Python with Streamlit, a powerful and intuitive framework for building interactive web interfaces quickly and easily. Within the Azure AI services, specifically under AI Foundry, we'll be using the Translator service to handle text translation across multiple languages, and the AI Foundry language service, which offers several advanced capabilities, including a dedicated feature for text summarization in different formats. So, let's head over to the Azure portal and start creating and configuring these services to power our application. Let's start by creating the AI Foundry Translator service. Let's click Create to create the service and then use the APIs, keys, and endpoints in our application. Let's start by creating a resource group. All the resources will be created within the same resource group to facilitate organization, and above all, so that at the end we can delete this group and thus remove all the associated resources at once. As for the region, I'm going to select East US. However, it is important to note that after choosing the region, you click on pricing tier to check that the free plan option is available. This is essential as we will be using the free tier in this hands-on. Note that although I'm using a pay-as-you-go subscription, I'm using this service in the free tier. If the free tier option is not available in the selected region, choose another region that offers this plan. That said, let's now create our service. To do this, we need to define a unique name for it. The system will automatically validate it, and if everything is right, it will indicate that the name is available. Let us click on Review and Create, and it will initiate the Azure AI Foundry Translator review process. In another tab, we have the Azure AI Foundry Language Service, and we are going to create a service that will be responsible for summarizing text from the application, both in extractive and abstract modes. You'll notice that this service offers several features. It allows you to analyze the sentiment of a text, extract relevant keywords, and among other capabilities, text summarization, which will be the main focus of this hands-on. Now, let's click on Continue to proceed with the creation of this resource. In the next step, select the same resource group used in the previous service. I will also keep the same region, and as expected, you will be asked for a name for the service. Enter a unique name. The system will validate it automatically. And do not forget to check if the free option is available. That is what we need for this hands-on. Once everything is right, click on Review and Create to start the creation process. Validation failed. Some information was missing. Let me go back to the previous screen in Basic, and probably some flag here. You need to check this option. Now Review and Create. After the review step, click Create to start the process of provisioning the AI Foundry Translator service. As in the previous step, after completing the review stage, we'll click Create. This will start the process of creating the service, the AI Foundry language service. Let's wait for these resources to be created before we go on to the next step. Once both resources have been successfully created, we have the option of clicking on Go to Resource to directly access the newly created resource. In practice, this action takes us to the resource group, where we can see both services already provisioned, the language service and the translation service. When you access one of the services, for example, Translator, you will see an overview of the resource. At this point, the key is to locate the information needed for integration with the application, the keys and endpoints. To do this, navigate to the Key and Endpoint section in the side menu. That is where you will find the essential data for making API calls. The service generates 2 access keys. This is a best practice for redundancy purposes. If you need to revoke or replace a key, you'll already have a second one available for immediate use without interrupting your application. Just below, we also have the endpoints, which will be used in the integration with our application. Similarly, when we access the text analytics service, responsible for the language feature, including the summarization functionality, we'll also find the resource management section where the necessary keys and endpoints will be available. In addition, from the console, you can test the service directly. If you'd like to explore further, you can click on Get Started with Language Studio, where you'll find useful options for trying out the service's features, all without writing any code. By clicking here, you'll see the option to summarize text directly from the console without integrating with any application. You'll also see the option to access AI Foundry Studio to further explore available services. We have a video explaining its main features, but for now, let's focus on our application. To do this, click on the Keys and Endpoints option, which will display the access keys and endpoints needed to integrate the service into your application. Let's now move on to the VS Code terminal. In this setup, I'm using an Ubuntu machine hosted on AWS, accessed via a VS Code extension. If you're interested in learning how to configure this environment, feel free to leave a comment. We can create a step-by-step tutorial video. One of the main advantages of this approach is the ability to harness the full power of VS Code while editing files directly on the remote AWS instance. That said, let's clear the terminal and begin the deployment process. First, we will create a virtual environment to run the application in isolation using Python. This EC2 instance already comes with Python and pip installed, so we are ready to run the commands and set up the environment. Once the virtual environment is created, we will activate it and install the application's dependencies. We're now inside the virtual environment, so all installations will remain isolated. Let's proceed with installing the required services. Let's now define the environment variables with the keys and endpoints that will be used by our application, starting with the AI Foundry Translator service. These variables are fundamental because the code will access them dynamically during execution. So let's start by configuring the Translator service data. In the Translator service, we'll copy the access key and set it as an environment variable. Later, the key will be deleted to avoid exposing credentials. Using environment variables is a secure and widely adopted way to handle sensitive information. Keep in mind that environment variables are stored only for the current session. Restarting the machine will erase them. Now let's set the next variable, the endpoint. Simply copy it from the document translator service and add it to the terminal as an environment variable, just like the access key. The next variable we need to configure is the region. If I'm not mistaken, the resources were created in the East US region, so we'll use that value. With that, we've finished configuring the environment variables for the translator service. Now let's move on to the next service. We'll copy the keys and endpoint for this service and, in the same way, paste and set this information as environment variables in the terminal. Now let's return to the language service, copy the access keys, and set them as environment variables. These keys provide direct access to the service, so handle them with care and avoid exposing them in public content or repositories. For the language service, we also need to set the endpoint used for API calls. It's easy to find in the service interface. Just copy and paste it into the terminal as an environment variable. With all environment variables properly configured, we're ready to move on. The application even includes a debug section to help verify them and catch potential issues. Now, let's create the main file for our application. Now let's walk through a code example that is already prepared, but as you'll see, it's quite simple and straightforward to understand and implement. Here's the advantage of using VS Code. You have full control over both the interface and terminal in one environment. I'll hide the terminal for now, clear the screen, and open the application file we just created. Now we'll paste the application code. It may look a bit long at first, but that's mainly due to Streamlit's structure, which uses the st alias to build the interface in a simple and intuitive way. Everything called using the st alias refers to Streamlit functionalities commonly used to build the app interface, like text fields, buttons, and checkboxes. What do we have here? Exactly the environment variables we configured earlier. Python, using its standard libraries, such as OS, accesses these variables directly from the operating system. This is how the application retrieves the keys and endpoints needed to communicate with Azure services. In other words, this is where the magic happens, the integration between the code and the cloud services. It uses these credentials to authenticate and identify which endpoints and services to consume. We have some functions such as translate text, which will be the function responsible for translating texts. And how is it going to do this? Precisely by specifying which subscription from which region it will be consuming and translating the text. Likewise, the code also includes summarization functionality. This part is structured into separate functions, each of which is responsible for a type of summary. One function deals with extractive summarization, which selects the most relevant parts of the original text, and another deals with abstractive summarization, which rewrites the content based on your understanding as if it were an explanation in your own words. The code has been structured to handle both extractive and abstractive summarization. From this point in the code, we have the part responsible for session control and the construction of the interface, done entirely with Streamlit. It is precisely this layer that gives the application its interactive look. It is worth remembering that technically we could run this application directly in the terminal and get the results there, but with Streamlit, we have managed to create a much more user-friendly and accessible graphical interface. The final part of the code takes care of the interface with Streamlit. Now that everything has been explained, let's test the application. Remember that this application uses some dependencies that will need to be installed, such as Azure AI Text Analytics. You'll also need to install Streamlit, as it doesn't come by default. Libraries such as requests and OS are part of the standard Python installation. We will need to install some dependencies, such as Azure AI Text Analytics, which enables natural language processing capabilities in our application. By installing this package, other components are automatically included, such as Azure Core credentials, which are necessary for the application to work correctly. So you'll see that we won't need to install anything related to this dependency because Text Analytic already does it for us, and much more. Now let's go through the steps of installing our dependency packages and running the application. We'll start by installing Streamlit. This command installs Streamlit, a fantastic library that offers a modern and interactive visual interface for our application. Let's wait for this command to finish. After that, we'll install the next package, Azure AI Text Analytic. Once the installation is complete, let's clear the screen and move on to the next command, which installs the Azure AI Text Analytics package. Perfect. Command executed successfully. Now we can run our application. Although it is possible to run using Python directly via a module when working with Streamlit, I prefer to use the Streamlit run command followed by the file name. It starts the application automatically in the browser. And that's it. Our application is now up and running. And now let's access this application and test to see if it really does translate and summarize text in two ways. Let's go. We have three options to access the application using localhost, the private EC2 IP, or the public IP, if you prefer accessing it externally, provided that port 8501 is open in the security group. In this case, we will run it from localhost. Let's click on Open in Browser to check if the application opens correctly. If everything is working, we'll have the application live, up and running, ready to use. So we have the name of the project at the top, followed by a field where you can type in the text to be translated, and also options for the languages into which the text can be translated. You can select from several available languages for translation. The application also includes a debug section that indicates whether the environment variables are correctly configured. This helps confirm that the configuration steps, especially the export commands, were completed successfully. The endpoints that the application is using to connect to Azure services are also displayed here. Now, I'm going to take a well-known sample text so that we can test the application. Let me close this screen so that we can continue. Let's use Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous speech, "I Have a Dream," as an example. It's one of the most remarkable speeches in history, widely known and perfect for testing our application's translation and summarization features. Select the language you want to translate into. I'm going to choose French, and I'm going to click on Translate. We're now using Azure AI Foundry Translator, which completed the translation quickly and efficiently. As we can see, the text originally in English has been successfully translated into French. Just below, we have other features of the application, the summarization options, both extractive and abstractive. The application summarizes based on the language selected, in this case, French, the result of the previous translation. The type of summary generated now is extractive, which identifies and displays the most relevant parts of the original text. Abstractive summarization usually takes a little longer because it's going to do a whole analysis and reformulation and explain it in the artificial intelligence's own words. The application shows its current status, currently running, and displays the abstractive summary rewritten in a natural way, making it easier to grasp key ideas quickly. This is a fantastic application that can be applied to education, business, and content creation. This application demonstrates, in a practical way, the integration and efficiency of Azure's artificial intelligence services, AI Foundry, for natural language processing. It brings together translation and summarization within a single intuitive interface, offering a complete and accessible solution for working with text in multiple languages. Wonderful, right? That concludes this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave your comments below. And just a quick reminder, to remove all the resources created during this hands-on, simply go to the resource group you created and delete it. This action will remove all associated resources at once. Click on Delete Resource Group, confirm by pasting the group name, and you're done. No leftover resources consuming your quotas. And remember, all the services we used here were within the free tier. That said, I'll wrap it up here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Alright, thank you so much for watching this video, and then if you enjoyed this content, please consider subscribing to our channel, give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this content, and then also please leave us a comment telling us what you think about this video and also the things that you'd like to see in a new video in here on our channel, okay? And then if you're interested in mastering Move to Cloud, DevOps, and AI with our help, please check the links in the description as well. Hope to see you in the next video. Take care and goodbye for now.